Hello, everybody. I'm Steve Lentini, and you're listening to the podcast, Different Thinking for Different Times. And if you've been listening, because for 7 years I've been doing this, it's about stretching one's thinking from small minded, what I call the acorn brain. Some people have the Brazil nut brain, because if you've ever tried to crack a Brazil nut, man, it sometimes takes a hammer. And some of us, and even me in my life, I've had times where it took a hammer to crack me open to some of the wisdom people were sharing, and it might have been labeled feedback. And the acorn brain, this small-minded thinker likes to reject things that doesn't fit its profile. It's fascinating what Dr. James Doty talks about in his book Mind Magic. Think of the subconscious this way. He breaks it down very simply. File system and a bloodhound. And he said, whatever you put in that file system, the bloodhound goes looking for evidence of that, despite any evidence to the contrary. So our brains actually work against us when it comes to hearing what other people have to say or think and what their ideas are. So just careful, put a pause in when your first thought is to react or to define the person as something other than you or less than you for some reason. Because in my experience, we're all just bozos on the bus. Some days I'm driving, some days I'm in the middle window just looking, and some days I'm hanging out the handle on the back door screaming. And that's just what life is. So today we have a guest. We have a fascinating guest, and I've known Mike for a lot of years. And he wrote a book called Wisdom from a Toilet Paper Salesman. Okay, and I used to be a toilet paper salesman, so I know where he was coming from. And there's some things I'm going to have him that I flagged that I'm going to have him talk about, and there's a few other places in there that I'm just going to open up to, because the whole book has got some wisdom if you're in sales or even leading, because it applies. And so Mike has been in this industry for a long time, and he's a leader. And I'm going to let him at this point tell you about himself. So Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. It's a great honor and privilege to be on the podcast.
I'm
Wow, where do I
grateful
start?
you agreed, and we had some fun. I was a guest on his podcast. So, what's the name of your podcast? Tell everybody.
You were, and it's the Toilet Paper Salesman podcast. And that episode actually it'll be May 5th at 5 o'clock in the morning. That will be up and available. And it's a great
Thank you.
podcast episode. Yeah.
Thank you. I was very grateful for you putting in the time and the effort and inviting me. So
Yeah.
here you
So
are.
thank you. So I've been this business for 40 years, 41 actually this year. Uh, And, I've learned a lot and I've made a ton of mistakes. And so when you talk about the book, the reason for the book is to help to impart the wisdom that I've learned and the mistakes that I've made. And same with the podcast, it's the same mission. My mission and purpose is to help people um, to make a difference in people's lives, whoever I touch every day. And I'm not always successful at that. Sometimes I fail miserably, but overall, that is my goal. And I do my best to help everybody I can where they're at and how I can. And so that's really where the root of the book comes from. It's not it's a book of sharing, an essence of, hey, this is where I'm at, and this is what's happened to me, and these are the stories that I've experienced. And I think a lot of that comes through as very short. They're very short chapters. They're very easy to read, and it's a lesson for each one, a different lesson. And sometimes they tie together, and a lot of them do tie together. But ultimately, it's about how we treat each other and the difference that we can make in each other's lives, whether it's just a smile or it's something more meaningful. If our goal is to help people to be successful or to make a difference each day, then it's really a challenge to do that, right? And, so one of the books, my favorite book in the world, The Max Strategy, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Steve.
No, I'm going to make a
It's
note of it.
actually out of print. It's by Dale Doughton.
Mm-hmm. Probably can find it on a used bookstore.
Right. And that's
Dale Dalton,
Dale Doughton.
Dautn. And what's the name of
Out
it?
of print, The Max Strategy.
I'll bet you I'll find one.
It's an incredible book and a short, easy read. Again, it's a really cool story, but he talks
Mm-hmm.
about how to make a difference each day.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, that's challenge. It's not
Mm-hmm.
easy to make a difference, right?
No,
But
especially when
I'll
this
give,
little voice in our heads takes over.
yeah, we're all charged with that. And it's whether or not we want to take up the challenge and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before I ask you about some of the chapters and things I flagged that I thought were really there's a lot of wisdom in here and things that stood out to me. But before we get into that, how long were you thinking about writing a book?
Yeah. So I actually wrote this book in 2016. The original
Mm-hmm.
version of this was Sales Wisdom from a Toilet Paper Salesman.
Mm-hmm.
So in the 10-year anniversary version, I cut it shorter and said Wisdom from a Toilet Paper Salesman.
Mm-hmm.
Back in, I've always wanted to write a book. It's funny how that works, Steve. When I was a little kid, I remember making a book about cars.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't that old. I had to be 8 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I got all the paper and I drew different cars and I made a book.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went to school, I wasn't very good in English. I was
Mm-hmm.
actually a D or a C. A C was amazing and a D was standard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just, my problem or my challenge was I was very young. My mom started me in kindergarten when I was 5, and I had
Mm-hmm.
just turned 5 in September. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had just turned 5 and I had ADD. So I had just turned 5 and I had ADD. So I was one of the youngest kids in a class. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had some real challenges as I went through school because I just,
Mm-hmm.
have how my mind worked and just the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I was really young.
Mm-hmm.
So English was not my best subject. And when I went to college, they gave me an intermediate English class and I had to write these papers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget my professor. The first few were like, okay, you have some work to do here. And then it got better, and then it's that by the end, he's like, pretty creative, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I got better at it, but who would think that I would be somebody to write a book? But through my career, I started writing articles for trade magazines. So I got a
Mm-hmm.
few articles published for trade magazines.
Mm-hmm.
And, I always wanted to write a book. It was just kind of there. And the
Mm-hmm.
way it happened was I was on LinkedIn and looking at an article about sales management that I completely disagreed with. I was like, this is complete BS. And so
Wasn't
I
one of my
started
articles, was it?
that. No, no. But so
I'm good with people disagreeing with me,
it's
and
okay.
I think that's how we grow. But yeah, go ahead.
It's true. So I start writing a response. And then in the middle of writing the response, I thought to myself, I'm just going to write an article. Why would I write a response to this? I'll write my own article
Yeah.
with a counterpoint, right? And so I wrote the article. My wife, who was a French major in college, which
Mm-hmm.
was really handy,
Mm-hmm.
had a good editing skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd give her the article and she would edit it up and I posted on LinkedIn. And it was great. I got a lot of good feedback. And then every time I would get an idea, I'd put an article in. It was about once a week. I'd throw an
Mm-hmm.
article up and throw an article up. And this happened probably for a year and a half. And then all of a sudden, no more ideas. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay. And then I was a little bit bummed about that, but it was all right. So I just moved on. And then I dropped off my son to college. He went to college in Bowling Green in Ohio. And I flew back on an airplane from Detroit. And on the flight back, I was thinking, man, I really would like to write a book. I have all this material and I would love to do it. And, but I'd have to get a ghostwriter. Like, how's it going to do it? And it popped in my head. It's like, wait a minute, you have all these articles you wrote. Why don't you just turn it into a book? So I started because I had my iPad with me and all the articles were on the iPad. And then I started organizing them. And there was like 38 articles that turned into 30 chapters. And so that really got me going. And then from there, I just wrote the rest. And then I published, I used CreateSpace to publish the book, which is a self-publishing platform that was Amazon at the time. Now it's ADP.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it and wrote the book and wrote the rest and published it in July of 16.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a head fake. I didn't even know I was writing a book. I just wrote one.
That's how it works. That's what most people don't understand. This little thinker in most people's heads keeps them from acting on ideas they have because of all the things that brain suggests. It sometimes suggests that we're less than others, that we're not good enough, that the work isn't good enough, who will ever buy this, what gives you the right. And it's the voice in our own head, let alone that other people could possibly be the ones that share that kind of stuff with us. It's in our own heads. And so you overcame that. And it's amazing how many people that I've had tell me, "Oh, I'd like to write a book." Yeah, go ahead.
Right.
And I was listening to an author on Audible today, and she's here. I'll tell you the book because it's fascinating. You might enjoy it. If you have Audible, I can share it with you for free. But anyway, I'll tell you what the name of the book is and the author. And she's having a conversation basically very similar to Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God.
Mm-hmm.
And the book is One Truth, One Law, I Am, I Create. That's the I am theory, right? That when Moses asked God, the burning bush, who are you? I am the I am. And the theory too for a lot of people, and Ernest Holmes and many other theologians and philosophers, or that we're one with that. And her name, by the way, the author is Erin Worley, Werley, and she asks questions of God. She said to God, or she's talking to God, and God says, "Well, I'm talking to Erin, and Erin wants to write a book, but she's not there yet. She's not going to write it yet." And so Erin says, "Well, how do you know that?" Because you haven't decided. You're not certain. You're still listening to the voices that aren't me, that aren't the I am, that aren't. And for many people, it could be the intuition, the small, still voice. When we get ideas like that, as opposed to the ideas that come in with 76 trombones and a marching band, the ideas like that are so loud are typically ego and hubris. And this sounds like it was very quiet, that it was a quiet journey. And you came to the realization on a plane ride, hey, I got 38 articles.
Yeah, it was a head fake, like I said, because I've wanted to do it, but I had to get faked into it, And
You had to fake the mind, right? That's really talking about the acorn brain. That if you
yeah,
had listened to the brain, you probably wouldn't have done it. And it's true that sometimes we have to move ahead into what's uncomfortable or the opposite of what the voice is suggesting. So, really, congratulations, because that led to the first book, which led to this book
yes, and led to the podcast,
and the podcast.
and there's more books because now every time I have a story or something that happens, I write them down, and that now I have goodness so much material, and that's the one thing that when if you really want to do something, take small steps towards it because you really don't realize how much you can do with just small steps every day, just a little bit, just a small article, a couple of chapters, whatever it is. And then the next thing you know, you turn around and you go, wow, I can't believe I got 38 articles that I wrote in a year and a half. That's incredible. Like, and that's how it happens. It's incrementally small. And, I've written that book. I have probably two or three books
Mm-hmm,
already done. Like I have the stories, I have the outlines, they're all there. And
mm-hmm,
all of the material, the one I have them on hard drives and things like that. And the workshops that I've put on and developed and, the training that I did back in 2010, 2000, somewhere in there, called Aligning with God's Will. It's a whole
mm-hmm,
workshop that I did for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And then I haven't used it, but I
mm-hmm.
still have the material and I still use the material. And then the other things that I've developed. So it's just a process. It's a little bit every day. It's not home runs. It's singles every day.
Yeah. Yeah, to do something every day. And William Stafford, he's a long dead mentor of mine for many ways. He wrote 40,000 poems. This is just one collection, 1,000 poems, of which 6,000 got published. And someone asked him, well, what did you do when you had writer's block? Because he was committed to writing a poem a day, 40,000 days. Imagine, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And he said, on those days, I lowered my standards, which was the brain, right? He had to convince the brain what you just said. He had to do a head fake. He had to do a mind hack, whatever you want to call it. He had to tell the brain, quiet down. This poem will be good enough, is what he's saying, that he had to lower his standards. And he wrote. He wrote. And what the only thing that was holding him back on those days where he had to lower his standard was the voice, that it really wasn't true. He does share in when you do some research on him that a lot of the 6,000 were the days that he had so-called writer's block, right? That he had to lower his standards. What it was the judge in his brain saying, "Oh, this, come on, nobody's going to like that." When we get to the point where we can just share the wisdom, whether we've learned it from others, our grandparents, our parents, a boss, another leader, and then intuition and ideas that come to us that we feel are sound, it's up to us to just let go of the idea that somebody else will like it or not. The heck with it. Just do it.
Somebody else will steal it.
Or that.
Like sometimes you get that, oh, well, if I put it out there, somebody might say, when I first started doing these articles, my wife and others would say, why would you give everybody all that information? Like, aren't your competitors going to listen? I said, yeah, I hope so. Why?
Right.
Because it makes everybody better.
Right.
I've done talks, and I had my competitors right in front of me taking notes.
Mhm.
And you go, yeah, I hope you learn. It's good.
It lifts whatever industry. It lifts, what's the saying? A rising tide raises all boats.
Yeah.
Right.
It's okay. If I can help people get from point A to point B, then it's all the better. And that's really what the goal is. And I'm not concerned about necessarily giving my competition knowledge that maybe I've learned. If they can find out anywhere, if there is no new knowledge, that everything is recycled at some level. And
yeah,
we gain it from certain areas and we put it out there, and maybe it's a different twist on it or a different, but everybody's in a different place because it's no different than advertising. If I'm not looking for a car, there's a million car advertisements. They're all over the place. You don't notice them. You don't even think. But the moment you go, my car's going, I need to get a car, all of a sudden you see everything.
right.
And it's really similar with us, as you're
That's the reticular activating system.
That's exactly what that is. That's what it is. You get a blue Honda and you drive it off the lot, and all of a sudden you see nothing but blue Hondas.
Yeah.
And so
the ads don't mean anything to you until you decide to buy a car. Then the ads are important. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's no different with learning, right? If you're not focused on something, the information could be there and you're just not able to digest it. You're just not able to absorb it because you haven't set your mind to it. And sometimes you have to go down these rabbit holes, like I was in an ancient Egypt rabbit hole for a while, and just doing all the megalithic stuff and the pyramids and how they were built, and like just deep diving into that stuff. And I almost ask yourself why, like why this, like why all of a sudden am I into this, and then all of a sudden it comes to you and you gain this knowledge from it that you get, and you go, oh, wow, that's incredible. But if you didn't take that deep dive into it, then you would never have gotten the knowledge.
No.
Yeah. Deep dives are good. I love them.
Yeah, it is all connected. It is all, and it's all relative. So I want to get to the book now. The introduction, you talked about that you decided to share what you learned, but you also have some stories about the people that were important to you. So talk a little bit about that, because I think everybody has people that might have poured into them that could contribute to their career, maybe the next thought that they have about writing a book. But anyway, talk a little bit about that.
Well, we all have people that pour into us, and we all have mentors. And I've had many mentors, and I've walked with people for various times. And it's funny how certain people walk up beside you and really make a difference in your life. And you have to be open to it. You don't know who that's going to be. And, I was just talking to one of my mentors today, one at RJ Shinner, and he's actually the reason why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And I met him a while. Do you know Jeff Herron? Do you know that guy?
No, I don't think we ever met.
Yeah. Well, so he was retired now from RJ, but he was my mentor there. And I met him and just an incredible human being and taught me and mentored me. And and I've had a number of those people, some good and some bad. The first guy that I had, I would call my mentor, was a guy who was an old school salesman and was a I mean, if you think about, and Steve, because you were selling back in those days,
Mhm.
times were different. When they had the lounge singers, and they
Mhm.
were used to do things in a different way. A lot of cussing, a lot of things that he said to customers that I mean, but I learned more from him what not to do than what to do, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes that's the learning, which is
Yeah.
I can't be like you, I have to be me. And that's a huge learning. And you can learn that from a mentor. He taught me a lot about sales. I've seen him do things that I just shake my head and go, wow, nobody could get away with that. Who can today? Forget about
Yeah.
it. The HR
No.
department would be. But that's, and so these people come in and out of your lives, and they really help you to guide you. And my hope is I can do that for somebody too. And I have, and I know
Yeah.
you have, Steve.
Yeah. It's sharing information. The first thing people have to do is get over the idea that they have nothing to share, right? Because the brain will suggest that. In chapter 4, you wrote 7 resolutions to success. Do you remember them all?
Somebody will say, people say that to me. They go, "Hey, that thing you wrote in your book, that's amazing." I was like, "Okay, what
I
is
have
it?"
to look up stuff in my books all the time that I wrote.
Yeah,
That I wrote. I
because I
couldn't
don't hang
remember
on.
the last time that Caesar said, not Caesar. See, now I'm forgetting it again. The guy that wrote politicians aren't he wrote politicians weren't born, they were excreted. And I get a kick out of that one because he wrote that in like 146 BC or AD, right around the turn of the century of the first century, right? 2000. From 0 to 1, right? He's writing that politicians weren't born, they were excreted. We still haven't learned anything all these thousands of years later. So how does that relate to what we're talking about? The wisdom that's imparted is caught by some people. And then there's some things that we just have to decide that there's nothing we can do about it. We have to let it go in our mind, right? Because people are railing about politicians to this day, and yet we haven't resolved to elect people that have integrity and that are going to do the right thing. And that's really the difference between being born and excreted, at least according to Cicero. So anyway, yeah, you don't have to remember, but I did want to go over the 7 because I made sure I flagged things that I think are important because I end up sharing them with other people. Resolve to really listen. That was number 1.
Yeah, I have a challenge with that, and so that's personal. That one because,
Because you were AD.
and man, my biggest fault, Steve, is when somebody starts a story, I finish it in my mind. And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes you could ever make, right? Because they're trying to tell me something the way tell you they want to tell me. And some people have a long lead up to the story. And as they're leading up to the story, I'm finishing in my mind. And the mistake of that is because I'm trying to finish that in my mind, I'm not truly listening to that person and what they're actually saying.
Mm.
My mind is working trying to finish their story. And so I really have to work hard to actively listen to someone, what they're saying, and not get ahead of myself. And I'm telling you, that is one of the biggest struggles I have.
Well, I can tell you that that's human too. That I think it happens on a lot of levels, unless everybody I ran into were ADD, and then that would include me, because I
Yeah.
myself doing the same thing, right? That I've got to really bring myself back to the moment to really listen and to hear people. But in sales, that's been so valuable because I can remember a story about a major university. Finally, one of my salespeople got the appointment, and we get there, and it opens like this. After some pleasantries, right? Shaking hands, thank you for the appointment, all that stuff, and introductions. The person in charge of purchasing for that group at this major university said, "Hey, I just want to let you know right up front, we could never buy from you." Now, my salesperson, I could see her body language getting really tight and wanted to jump in with, "What do you mean? Don't you know who we are? And we do this and that, and how many trucks we have, and how many locations? We're all over New England, blah, blah, blah." I just put a hand out so that she didn't say anything and just said, "Well, that's fine. I'm kind of curious. Tell me, why is that?" And she said, "Well, we got 16 suppliers and we're going to go to one. And some of them we've done business with for over 30 years. How could we ever give it to you?" And I said, that makes sense. I wouldn't give it to us. I said, I can't imagine you going to the president of the college saying, guess what? I got a new supplier. And I went from 16 to 1 and we gave it to somebody we've never done any business with. And so she kind of chuckled when I said, yeah, I don't think I wouldn't give it to us. That'd be crazy. So then I said, since we're not going to get the business, do you mind telling me what's going on? And to your point, what happened was the competition they missed the point. Because after hearing the story, I said, sounds like you need a partner. And she said, what's that? I said, well, wait, you got 16 people coming in, I suspect. You're going to have a process, right? How are you going to get to one? She told me, yeah, we got a process. So I said, I can't believe one of them wouldn't say the same idea. From hearing what in the business we're in, from hearing what you're telling me, I can't believe one of the competitors wouldn't tell you that. Same thing. I said, if not, call me. And 2 weeks later, she called. And I said, I answered the phone, said her name, and she said, Steve, what are you doing next Tuesday? I'm available. What do you need? And she said, I'd like you to come in. I said, do you mind telling me why? I'm a little confused. And she said, oh yeah, I want to hear about your partnership thing. I said, did all 16 people come in already? She said, yeah. Okay, so no one had the idea about partnership? She said, no, I haven't heard that. And 3 months later, so as a favor, I said, well, I'll come in Tuesday. Do you mind doing me a favor? And she said, no, I don't mind. I said, would you add me to the list of 16? I said, I know it's a long shot. Make me number 17. Make us number 17. And she did. 3 months later, we won the business, which stunned people. And there's a longer story to it, but this is your podcast, you're the guest. So
It's a great story, Steve, though. That is a great story. And
we got
it's, it's no different. My wife is, she's a professional listener. I don't know of many people who are better than her, right, at listening.
And what's the difference? What makes her a professional listener?
She's in the moment completely, and she's very empathetic, and almost, she will say to a fault, but it's a gift. And so she could truly empathize with somebody and get into their shoes, like in a moment, and really understand what they're feeling, what they're talking about. And that kind of empathetic listening is just, it doesn't exist much, right? And so I was going through a negotiation course, and part of the negotiations course is active listening, And so after my sessions, I'm sharing with her, and she's like, you're paying for that? Like, what do you, that's basic stuff. And I go, no, you don't understand. You're a professional listener and you know all this stuff. And you know what that happens, Steve? Many people are brilliant and really good at different things, but they think that just because they are, everyone else is. And that's a real mistake that people make, that they don't realize that they're special and they have special gifts and talents, in some cases beyond what anybody has. And I'm telling you, my wife's listening skills are in that category. There aren't many people who can listen like her, but if you would talk to her, she wouldn't necessarily acknowledge that at that level, right? She was going like, yeah, okay.
Well, because she has a high level skill at that. It's a strength.
Yes. Yeah. And, but people tend to think that everybody's like that,
Right. It's true.
Especially younger people. Until you get older and you understand that that's not the case. Younger people who are really talented, they think everybody's talented like that. And yeah, it's an interesting.
Well, thankfully, still there's new books being written and published, and there's still printers, thanks to Amazon and many other people. Because if it's true that the young people are getting to that point where then there won't be any more books. What the hell? They know everything.
Right. Well, they will, but I mean, I think that the young people I find really engaging and smart. Our younger generation, like, wow.
Yeah.
Very impressed.
Yeah.
Very impressed.
I have an intern I'm working with who's in his early 20s, and I'm very impressed. And I've had 3 or 4 over the last year and a half. And every 3 months, I enroll somebody. I go through a process with a system that enrolls interns. So they're helping them find projects. And so I've signed up for that. And everyone I've had have all been in either just out of college or in college, and really fascinating how they're at the level of soaking like a sponge. They want to soak up some information, and that's.
I think they're way ahead of the game. I look at people like my daughter and some, my son even, and younger people in their 30s, And I go, man, when I was 30, I wasn't even close to that level. And I don't know why that is necessarily, but it seems like our younger people are further along than we were.
Well, it's because we want them to do better. Each generation wants the next generation to do better. Each set of parents wants their children to do even better and surpass them, which ties into other conversations that we've had, but I'm not going in that direction yet.
Okay.
Number 2 in the chapter 4 is resolve to ask more questions. I think that goes along with listening, right? If you're listening, you're going to have your curiosity would kick in. Is that where you wanted that? Is that where you wanted to go on that?
Exactly. One of my mentors, Phil Sullivan, who I
Mhm.
work for Huff Paper. I don't know if you know Phil,
I
but
met
he was
Phil in the
one of the
industry.
yeah, one of the owners of Huff Paper.
Mhm.
Man, he would walk into a business and his curiosity was just the best. And the questions that he asked, and he would just so engage. He could engage with the bum on the street just as well as the CEO. Incredible because of his curiosity, because he wanted to know everybody's story. How did you get here? What did you do? What's
Yeah.
special about you? And just one of the most incredible human beings. Unfortunately, passed on a couple of years ago, but an amazing person
Yeah.
because of the curiosity that he had.
Well, you see what you just said too is really fascinating because you when you talk about listening and then asking more questions, that curiosity that's required, if you're really there to listen, you're not going to be racing ahead to the next thing to say. You might be racing ahead to the next thing to ask because listening would mean it would spur your curiosity. Yeah. And if you're not attached to an outcome, this is a problem that I find with still to this day with people that I work with and when I do consulting and end up writing with people, the place that they're still tripping over is they got their goals and they're attached to their goal. And maybe it's the boss's fault because I talked to the leaders about that is that, if you're asking them, what did you close lately? You're actually getting them attached to outcomes instead of developing the other side of their personality, helping them develop curiosity, listening better. Because guess what? Not everybody's going to be a good fit. But if you're asking them always, what did you close lately? Guess what? They're going to go out and write some business that the customer won't be as profitable, productive. There'll be a PIA, a pain in the butt.
Yeah,
That's not
P,
PIA. Yeah, right.
pain in the yeah. That's in
Right.
my book actually.
Yeah, it is. It is. And then I love this one because it goes with coaching. Number 3 is resolve to expand your comfort zone.
Right. Yeah. The way I started doing that is kind of interesting. And again, it's incrementally. The way I started was to develop a bucket list, things that I wanted to do, things I wanted to try, places I wanted to go, all those things. And then, whatever interests you, it doesn't even matter what it is. And now all of a sudden you start experiencing all these different things. Like we had somebody out to dinner one time and she was a country person, not really exposed to different things, right? And so we were out to dinner and we were going to have bone marrow. Well,
Mhm,
bone marrow is not a typical thing that most people have had in even cultured people necessarily, right?
mhm,
So we get her to try bone marrow and she loved it. And it's
mhm,
like, that right there, we got her out of her comfort zone because
mhm.
this was something that was completely off her radar. She wouldn't even think in bone marrow. And all of a sudden, you get her to try it, you put it on at least a little piece of bread, and it's delicious.
And that number 3, to resolve to expand your comfort zone is not just for salespeople. I mean, that's exactly the way this brain works. The acorn brain is the comfort zone. The brain wants you to stay right where you are. And many people listen to it. They believe they're thinking. And you'll hear it with people. Oh, no, that's not who I am. When I hear that, I don't care. I remind people, no, wait a minute. You're not getting away with that for me. It's who you choose to be because that's a choice.
No growth happens inside the comfort zone.
Right.
Growth only happens outside of your comfort zone, period.
What did you do? What are some things that you remember about stretching yourself? Because you have, besides the
It's,
writing.
it's so incremental, Steve. It really is. It's just trying different things. I remember during COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to play an instrument, and I never played an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got this thing called a chord buddy, and
Mm-hmm.
it's for the for the guitar, you know. So my
Mm-hmm.
son's a musician, so he has instruments, you know, he's all these different instruments, and he had an acoustic
He's a good
guitar.
musician, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So he has an acoustic guitar. So I
Mm-hmm.
get the chord buddy and I stick it on a acoustic guitar and I get the books and I start playing, you know, I'm just playing. And during COVID, I put up a couple of videos singing and playing the guitar. And everybody thinks I can play the guitar. You know, to this day, people go, "Hey, you still playing the guitar?" I was like, "Man, I was just messing around with this chord buddy, you know." But from a comfort zone standpoint, that's pretty uncomfortable to get yourself out there and put it
Yeah.
out there on, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it was just different things like that that sometimes you just have to go for it, and you have to. And I think as you get older, you don't care as much what people think, right? It fades away. When I was younger, I really thought about what people think, and now it's like, it's okay. Not everybody's going to like you. Some people are going to think you're crazy. It's okay, you know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
And then people are going to love you, right?
And the comfort zone, the what works against it too is the brain remembers every place we've fallen, every humiliation, every error in judgment, every embarrassment. And it often flashes those at the oddest times. Driving down the road, you got an hour to go on your ride, and all of a sudden it says, "Do you remember when you did that in the fourth grade?" What?
Yeah,
The
right.
brain works against us in that way. And that's where it's important for people to learn to really to work on reprogramming their mind.
Yeah, it's true, and it still happens to me. It happens to everybody, you know.
It happens
Those
to me. I've been
those
working on
memories
training
just
my
flood
brain for
back, and
25 years.
it's like wham, and then you're like, and it's just bad, right? And then you got to redirect and get
Yeah.
it back out of your mind. Yeah,
Well, in my work, I just remind people, okay, what did you learn from it? Because that's the
right.
gift. What did you
Yeah,
learn? If it was a real big embarrassment, would you ever do it again? No, hell no, I would never do it again. Right, there's a win. That's a learn, right? That's a lesson. Yeah. Right. Number
congratulations,
4.
you won't do that again, right?
Yeah, congratulations, right? I won't be
You won't
visiting
do
you.
that again. Yeah,
Resolve to spend more time with your family. This is interesting because a lot of salespeople, they really get caught up in the what they're going to prove and how good they're going to be, and they spend way too much time working.
again, guilty as charged. I'm a hard worker and I work
Me
long
too.
hours, but you know, and I'm not always perfect at it.
Hmm.
But now I have a grandchild, and that changes everything. I mean, you know, the grandchildren are incredible, and
Hmm.
I just find myself just sucked in to
Hmm.
that. And but yeah, your family is, you know, I think the other thing that people do, right? I think people think about helping people, right? But they
Hmm.
don't think about their family in the same way.
Hmm.
They think about helping people outside of their
Oh, that's a.
circle. And the most important thing, people you can help are the ones inside of your circle,
Hmm.
your family,
Hmm.
your friends, you
Hmm.
know, that circle that you have, that close circle. You know, it's like
Start there.
missionaries. It's like missionaries, right? Missionaries go out on these big trips and everything to Ethiopia or to wherever they're going, right? These
Hmm.
these great places.
Hmm.
And it's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great, right? Because those people need it. But how about the people in your life? How about the people that just come across you? How about the people that you touch every day? Are you really helping them? Or are you neglecting them so that you can go and help other people? Because somehow in your little acorn brain, you don't think they're quite like that's not the mission, right? Because they're your family. But those are the most important people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it leads to more grounded salespeople. And they end up doing just as well, if not better, than the people that are just driving, driving, driving all the time, driving themselves, because often they burn out in the middle of a journey.
Yeah. You have to sharpen your axe, Steve, right? You can't just keep chopping. You've got to stop and rest and
That's
sharpen
true.
your axe. Yeah.
Yeah. Number 5, resolved. I love this one. Resolve to get to know someone you don't like.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Gosh, I mean, sometimes you just meet somebody and you hate them. Like it just not, you know what I'm saying? Like there's just this thing that is, it's like, man, what's up with this person? And I think that was Abraham Lincoln who said that if you don't like somebody, get to know them better, right? And I
Mhm.
think that that's really something that we all should work on. because you just don't know what happened. You meet somebody and you don't hit it off for some reason. Wow, what happened? What is it? Was it something I did? Were they having a bad day? Was I having a bad day? You just never know. Somebody could have a terrible day and you just don't even know. And you meet this person and all of a sudden they're sour and you don't understand it. But if you judge them on that, you could be missing a really cool person, a really special person.
Yeah. Well, and Wayne Dyer used to say something interesting is that when you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice each and every time. He said, when we get squeezed, we get what we need to work on. So when we're really bothered by someone, it might be that we have what we would accuse them of, what we think they have that we're so upset about. We've got it somewhere and we don't know it, so that they could be a teacher. The gift in people and events that bother us could be that they're there to wake us up to something we're completely unaware of. So
Yeah.
I love
Life is
to
life.
know
Life is
someone.
less. Yeah, life is lessons. Life is lessons, right? And if you don't get them the first time, you get to GPS them and do them again. That's how it works. It's like GPS, You
Yeah,
missed your turn.
yeah,
You get to go back and you get to try it again every time, right? How many times, Steve, have you messed something up and you just totally mess it up and you go, man, I can't believe if that ever happens again, I'm going to do it different next time. And then lo and behold, might be a year, who knows, it'll come back around and you get to make that decision again,
yeah.
right?
Well, it's like somebody has a sense of humor. Might be God, might be this superior reasoning power that created this unimaginable universe, as Einstein used to say. And Eckhart Tolle used to say, what you resist persists. If you resist the lesson, it'll come back. And then if you think you're convinced you got it now, life has a sense of humor and it'll say, well, let's see. Let's do this
Yeah.
again. Let's put this person in the same situation and see if they did really learn. Yeah.
Can I give you a good story about that?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I'm an aisle flyer.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have the aisle seat.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something I really hate the middle and I hate the inside. Unless there's nobody else sitting in the row, then I could do the inside. I hate
Mm-hmm.
the middle. All right. So I get on the plane and I'm flying to Italy. Okay. And I'm in coach. And if you've ever flown overseas in coach, it's horrific. It is not a place you want to be. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
I get the aisle seat and somebody says, "Can you switch with me?" And I was like, "No, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm sorry. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
just can't." Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. So then I know that I should have, but I didn't. And then I felt bad about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So not that much longer, I get another chance. Somebody said, "Can you switch with me?" And I think I might have said no again. Said no again. And then the third time I got another chance and then I did it. And then it's like, okay, you passed the test, onward and upward.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like GPS, you keep getting these opportunities to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're open to it, if you're
Yeah,
open to it.
if you're
Yeah.
open to it. GPS, another term for GPS is God's positioning system.
That's right. That's what it is.
Resolve to randomly do something nice for someone. Now, in this, I love this for a lot of reasons. In this podcast, I talk about let's do good. When I close the podcast, let's do good. And so talk about that, right?
How do you make a difference each day?
Yeah.
You're presented with opportunities to do something nice for somebody, and you just do it. And again, that's where the acorn brain comes in because you'll be behind somebody in a supermarket and they're struggling, and you could tell that they don't have enough money. And then you're going, should I or shouldn't I? Should I or shouldn't? And then finally you just go, I'm just going to do it. And you pay for their groceries. And they go, what? Like you're not joking, are you? You go, no, I'm not joking. Here, pay for your groceries. And then you feel great after you go through that, right? But those are the kinds of little different things, and it could be nothing more than a smile. It could be, I tell this story. This is a good story. I'm in Springfield, Mass, right? And I pull up to this gas station because I need gas. And it was one of those gas stations that had the little kiosk, right? And so I pay for my gas and go use the pump. And across the way, I noticed that there was a pickup truck there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pay for my gas, but I needed a bottle of water. So I walk over to get a bottle of water, and the guy in the pickup truck was in front of me. Now, the interesting thing is when I got the money out of the ATM, usually you get 20s, but this time I got 10s. And it's like, why do I get 10s out of this machine? It doesn't make sense. But it is what it is. It's fine. So I put them in my book. So I got a bunch of 10s, you know? So I could see the guy struggling. He didn't have enough money and he was going to go to his truck. And I said, can I just ask what you need? And he's like, how much do you need for gas? And he's like, I need $30. So I have 10s. So I whip out 10s and I give him $30. He's like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. And then I turn around and there's a homeless guy behind me who holds out his hand because he needs something to eat. And I gave him a 10. I had another 10, right? So I give it to him. And then I turn around and I go to the kiosk and the girl behind the kiosk goes, what do you need? And I said, boy, it'd be great if I can get a bottle of water. And she goes, well, after that, I should give it to you. And she did, you know. And then the cool thing is when I went back over to my car, I saw it was a young couple and it was like they won the lottery. You know, they were so happy that they were able to fill their truck and go where they were going and have their day. And that's all it was. It was just simply being in tune and watching what happens and then taking action, right? And doing that little thing.
Yeah. And why is that important for salespeople?
Well, because it's the, you know, it's the tithing thing, right? Because here's the thing, if you give people what they need, my whole thing is, why do we do this business? What's the purpose of this business? What do you do this for? Why are you a salesperson? And you go, well, to make money, to get orders. And you go, that's fine. How about to help businesses and people to be more successful, right? Because if you can help them to get what they want, then you automatically get what you want. There's no, right? It's like sailing a boat. If you go from point A to point B and you're sailing, you don't just go straight across the river or the lake. You have to tact, you know, you have to go left, you have to go right, depending on which way the wind blows, and then you get there. Well, if you're helping people get what they want, then you're automatically going to get what you want. You have to tact. And if your focus is on their success, then you don't have to think about getting orders or getting business. It just comes. The business will flow at that point.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, and there's a theory too that the energy you put out in life is returned. And it's returned times 10. Even if it was returned times 5, because you have skeptics, right, that would say, oh, how do you know it's times 10? I don't know. But what I can say is, for people that experiment with that, doing good, instead of rejecting the people that cross their life and their path, asking for help, maybe the awareness raises to where you're paying attention to people that need some help and you help them. But doing good, you cannot deny, is an energy.
Yeah.
And we live in energy. And that just trusting to do good. And I ask people, how do you feel when you do good? Oh, I feel good. Okay. Maybe that's the reason to do it, just so that you feel good. And why do you think you feel good? Because that's an energy. That's why.
Did you ever notice when people volunteer? If you go to volunteer somewhere and you have a bunch of volunteers, they're always smiling. They always got a big rough smile on their face. They're always happy. They're always, why? Because they're helping people, because they're doing something better than themselves. They're helping their fellow human, right? And doing the things that we're supposed to do. This is why we're supposed to, you know, people go, why am I here? Like, what's the purpose to be on earth? Well, you know, we're here to help each other. And we're here to, because this isn't easy here. This is hard, right?
No, it's to get money and screw everybody we meet. The hell with them. I'm going to win. I'm going to overcome their ideas and beat them down. Right? Just listen to the energy in with that kind of thinking, right? That's a lower frequency energy, or called primal thinking, by David Baer. He's got this mind hack system, very similar to the work that I do. Better, right? He's more successful than me, so it must be better. I have to give him credit.
What does that mean, success? What do you mean it's more success? What does that mean?
Well, he's got a bigger program.
That doesn't mean anything.
No, I understand that.
One life that's bigger than anything.
No, without a doubt. I was going to get there.
That one life could have touched millions and millions. You could have touched, even though his show's bigger, technically, you could have touched millions more lives based off of one person.
Yeah, well, that's very true. And I'm grateful that you said that. And the energy that those words I used to describe someone that was just in it for themselves, right? And you have this quote in there about a very small person, right? That if you're all wrapped up in yourself, you make for a very small person. It's in the book. That's an energy that'll get returned. And there's a lower, scientists are actually finding that for people that are mostly negative thinkers and into themselves and very negative, selfish, primal thinking have a lower return on investment in their life because they're in primal thinking. When you're in higher frequency, which is all the doing good, the gratitude, the peace, helping others, acknowledging others, all those positive, powerful words and terms and powerful thinking, those people typically, as they've done studies, have a higher path in their life. Not just money. It's they're more satisfied and happier and joyous and in their life in general. Now,
I was driving behind somebody with their license plate said "made it," and it just kind of chuckled. I was like, "Made what?
yeah,
What did you
right,
make? You can't take it with you." You know,
right.
what's that country song? I never saw a hearse with the luggage rack on top, right? You're not taking it with you. So what you get? Everything you have, you're renting.
Right.
You don't own anything.
We're all leasing no matter what it looks like. That's
You
true.
don't own anything. You do not own a one thing. You think you own it until tomorrow when you're dead. Then you don't
Right,
own it, right? And it's
right,
gone.
right.
So
And then number 7, I love it. Resolve to have an attitude of gratitude.
you got to be grateful for everything. And, like you say, and you make a real point of this, you need to be grateful for those people who are challenging in your life, who give you challenges, because those are the people who truly help you grow. And we all, and that's the other thing. If you're either in gratitude, and if you're not in gratitude, then what are you in, right? If you're not grateful, or it's like fear, right? You're either in faith or fear, faith or fear. You can't be in
Mhm.
both. You can't be faithful and have fear, because you won't. If have faith, you won't be afraid because you have faith, right? It's the same thing. So with gratitude, it's the same way. If you have gratitude, you can't be the other thing, ungrateful.
Right.
At the same time, you can't be both.
Well, and there's a theory too that if you start out with what you can be grateful for in something, even when it's challenging and difficult, eventually you'll find the energy and the blessing and the gift that came while you were in it, that you'll
Right.
be grateful for it eventually. Because sometimes things occur that it's hard to be grateful while you're in it. I suggest always, and you talk about this, is to be grateful. Find that you might find some space to be grateful in it, knowing that there's a lesson coming. And
It's a choice.
it's a
To be
choice.
grateful is a choice, that you put yourself in that position. You choose to be grateful or not, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's not an emotion that just happens. Sometimes it does, but sometimes you have to choose it because things are hard, and you go, how could I possibly be grateful for this? And then you find it, and then you realize, or you look back at it and you go, wow, that was really a life lesson I needed to learn.
yeah, yeah. And what about a gratitude practice? To
Yes.
take breaks during the day, right? Think about. Have you met people that
Everybody,
weren't grateful? By the way, could you tell the difference?
always, immediately. When you get up in the morning, you have one day. That's all you have.
Right,
We have one day. Be grateful for it. It's a gift. Every day is an
right,
absolute gift.
right.
And so if you can be grateful for that day and say, okay, how do I make the most of this day? How
Yeah,
can I be grateful for it? And how can I make the most of it? And who can I help? Is there somebody I can help today? Is there somebody I can make a difference for today? And yeah, and
and
those add up. Those stack up fast, right? Like you don't even know. We'll find out one day. You found out. You find out one day how many people you actually help, because you have no idea. And then not just the people that you helped, but the people that they helped, and the
hmm
people that they helped, and the people that they helped.
hmm it's true. You have no idea the impact of your life. That I can tell you. I didn't know until November 18th, 2002, during my life review. But that's for another episode.
Right.
We're talking about Michael's book.
Yeah,
This chapter, 37. What you allow into your world is what you become.
that's right.
Expound on that.
I learned that in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I wrestled in high school and I wrestled in
Mm-hmm.
college. And what I learned is when you wrestled better people, you became better. And if you
Mm-hmm.
didn't wrestle, if you wrestle people who are worse than you become that. So you always wanted to wrestle above you. You always wanted to wrestle with somebody who was better than you, because if you hung around with those people, you would automatically get good. And I'll just tell you a quick story about that. We had this guy come in the room. His name was Robbie Rutt. I'll even say it, and he was not good when he first came in the room. And I was 126, and the guy below me, Tim, we beat the crap out of that guy every day. I mean, I'm telling you, we pounded that guy. And he kept coming back every day, and he kept coming back every day. And then by the end of the season, he was getting hard to beat. The guy was getting, I'm serious, he was hard. And I give him so much credit. I don't know where he is today. If I ever get to meet him, it would be great. I'm sure he's wildly successful just because of his tenaciousness. I mean, to come into the room every day and just get absolutely beat on and beat on and beat on. And I'm telling you, it were just small beatings. We used to beat on him, because we could. But then it got harder.
Wrestling.
And near the end, it was like, you're like, wow, this guy has really gotten better. And it's like that, right? So if you hang out in a group that's always negative, that's always talking crap, then that's what you're going to become. If you surround yourself with people who are higher, who aspire for more, who are positive, who are grateful, then that's what you become. It's a natural thing with your mind.
Michael Dell said that if you're the smartest person in the room, find a new room.
Yeah.
And I think you said it in the book too, that you take an inventory of the people around you. If you inventory 5 to 10 of the closest people around you, and you would define them as all negative, that's you. That's a reflection, which is what you were saying in that chapter.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Whatever you surround yourself with, you become. The one thing that I found out is I'd ride with salespeople, and I'm sure you've had the same experience. And they go, man, all my customers have money issues. They all have trouble paying their bills. And then you almost have to look and say, how's your home finances? How are your finances at home? Because you attract what you are, right? You attract those people. And if you're positive and you're grateful and you're all these things, and guess what? All of a sudden, those are the customers that you get. But if you got money problems, and then that's something that you really struggle with, you have a bunch of customers that have money problems. And so I said, and I'll still say it to this day, I can drive around and meet somebody's customers and tell you pretty much everything about them just based off of who their customers are and how they are. Right? If they complain all the time, I guarantee you that person, the salesperson, is probably a complainer. Right?
It's very interesting that you go there, because I have clients that ask me to come in and do some work. Say, let me see your customer book. Let's go through the story. And their customers tell a story. And when they talk to them, I say, all right, this customer is, what is this customer? A, B, C, or D? Because some people don't rate them. They haven't even thought about that.
Right.
And when they tell me it's a D customer and I ask why, okay, so then who's responsible for this, right? The responsibility for the customer being at that poor performing level ultimately is on the company and the leadership and then the salesperson. And it begins a transformation over time. Plus, it begins a way to train people, because you can give people questions that help them, salespeople, determine whether they're an A customer, a B customer potentially. And if they're a C and a D, you could say, Mr. Customer, we wouldn't be able to say yes to that. And I'm going to find you someone that'll be a good fit to serve you, right? To actually help them find someone, or say, would you like to hear why we wouldn't be able to say yes to what you're asking? And then you could have a real conversation, meaning, well, you just said you pay your bills in 60 to 75 days. That doesn't work for us. We've got to get paid in 30 days, or, whatever is the company's plan, right? And by having those real conversations, it's surprising how many people actually say, well, we could do that. I need your help with that, but we can do that. Go ahead.
I had a customer once who I didn't do much business with this customer. And they came to me, they said, hey, we're going to put our whole redistribution book out to bid, all of the business. It's over $1 million. I said, okay. They said, we're going to put it out to all the competitors. There's 6 of them. And we're going to do it every 6 months. And I said, no, thank you. And he said, what? I said, I'm not bidding on it. He goes, what do you mean you're not bidding on it? I said, why would I do that? Is my value only a price? Is that it? I said, I'll tell you what, you give it to the other guys, and while they're doing all the work to fill out the bid, I'll call in their best customers. He didn't know what to say. I never bid on it. I don't need that business. It's $1 million of what? If I get it, it's a bigger problem because now in 6 months I might lose it. So
Yeah.
we've ramped up to do $1 million worth of business, and in 6 months it's gone. What did I just
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
I cost my
Now
company
you're
a bunch of
competing
profit.
against yourself for those.
Yeah,
For you got to find a new customer to replace them, and if they weren't that good a customer to begin with, in terms of their attitude, is important too. Is what you're saying? Attitude's
right.
important.
If
Yeah.
they didn't value what we bring to the table, which obviously they didn't, if they're willing to put it out to bid and even put it out to bid to their competitors, they're even willing to do that. I go, some of these people are your competitors. Don't you care about that? No, we just care about the price. I go, okay, let them fill it out. That's fine. You get
Right.
what you get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can't be a partner with someone and have a real conversation, then to your point, why be a bidder? Now what you are is a computer system.
Yeah. I'm not going
Hey,
to
give
do
me
all the work.
your new pricing. What is it, like stocks? My price is my price, and if I got to change it, I got to change it. Right? Yeah, they don't
That's right.
understand the energy involved in that. And there are a lot of industries, like in construction, where they put out what's called a invitation to bid, and then they send them all the blueprints. And there is work that has to be done to come up with the pricing. So it's like, hey, tell us what it'll cost to put all the cinder blocks in this building, right? So they've got to do some math to figure out what's required, but still, most of the suppliers of whether it's painting or cinder blocks or roofing or flooring, they're afraid to say, no, I'm not doing that. What I'd like to do is tell you what the average cost is for a job like that, the percentage. I'll tell you where I'll come in. I'll be the partner if we develop this relationship over time. I'll make sure you get good work at a fair price. And believe me, all the contractors know what percent of the job should be painting, should be flooring, should be walls, should be whatever it is, roofing. They know. But the idea is they can get people to beat each other. And it's a
Mhm.
waste of time because all the companies spend a lot of time preparing the bids. That's the other thing. Why not have a partner and save, if it's 50 grand a year to have a project manager putting out the bids, probably more like 100,000 a year today for those people putting out the bids. Why? And some of the companies have 8, 10, 12, 15 project managers that all they're doing is putting out bids.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not my customer, not my ideal customer. Right. No.
No.
And I have
And
other
you know what?
stories like that
That's
too.
smart.
It's funny. I was riding with a broker at one time,
Mm-hmm.
and we ran around to my customers, and we spent the day. And and he goes, "Man," he goes, "your customers are all great. They're amazing." And I said, "You're right." I said, "Because I only call on amazing customers. That's all I do business with. I don't have to do business with everybody. I've got a big book of business,
That's
and
the
it's
key word.
yeah. I don't need to. I've had customers who are being really difficult that I fired, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "What do you mean you're firing me?" I said, "Just because we're in business doesn't mean we have to do business." And he goes, "What?" I go, "Just because we're in business doesn't mean we have to do business together. I'm not obliged to sell you. I don't have to sell you. Because if you're going to be nasty to my customer service people, if you're going to be difficult to deal with, if you're going to complain about everything, if you're going to beat me down on the price, all the things, then it's not a partnership. And we only want to do business with partners. That's who we do best with. And sometimes in a case like yours, maybe you're better off with some of these other guys and they can help you." And he just blew his mind. He didn't know what to.
You're setting a boundary, and that's healthy. That's healthy. And it's amazing that when one sets a boundary, people are often shocked that they get what they wanted, right? They get people that respect the boundaries. And you're right. I don't know of anybody who has 100% of the marketplace. You probably have room to grow today, right? So you don't have to do business with everybody, especially those that abuse your teams. I'm with you in that. And it's
Well,
in
I
the
stay in
book.
front.
It's in
Yes.
the book.
Thank you.
Wisdom from a Toilet Paper Salesman. How do people get the book, Mike?
If they can go to toiletpapersalesman.com. They can go to michaelmirarchi.com. Yeah, that'll get you there. It's on Book Baby. If you go on Book Baby's
That's where I got it.
bookshop, yeah, if you go in their
Yep.
bookshop and you type in "wisdom from a toilet paper salesman," it will come up. Amazon, it'll come up. All the major book stores. So,
All right. Well,
yeah,
I want to encourage people to get it. Whether you're a salesperson or not, it's important too as a leader. If you're leading sales teams, it's important to consider the wisdom that Mike imparted in the book. Now, I want to do at some point in time, maybe next month, I don't know, when is good for you? I want to do another episode with you and to talk about our favorite topic, which is salespeople and all people need a North Star. And I know what your North Star is. It's very similar to mine.
yeah.
It's called God. I want to talk about that. And why don't you close with your thoughts about salespeople having a North Star, a higher power, God, whatever they want to call it?
Sure. I would love to. And thank you for having me on. It's just an incredible honor to be on. And I can't wait to have that second discussion. I'll just say this. When we first started RJ Shinner in the Northeast, everybody thought that we were nuts. They said, "You're going to get crushed. Come on, you guys are a bunch of country bumpkins out
There's
there
no
in
room for
Wisconsin."
you here.
Yeah, you're a bunch of country bumpkins out there in Wisconsin, and you don't know anything about the Northeast, and you're just going to get bounced, right? And my response was, "There's always room for excellence."
Mm,
Okay, so here's my philosophy: I put everything in God's hands 100%. I work as hard as I can, and then He takes care of the rest. And so we opened up the branch in August of 2018, and the thing just takes off. Who would know that Sofeld would close their doors in 2019? Who would ever guess that would happen? And any number of other things that happened along the way, and our business just absolutely exploded.
mm-hmm.
And I remember walking through the warehouse, and these are moments of truth. Right? And when we first populated the warehouse, about $1.5 million worth of inventory, 85,000 square foot warehouse, right? And I'm walking through, and it just looks so big and full to me. And you get those moments of, oh crap, now what am I going to do? I got to do this, And it's just beyond you, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so put everything in God's hands, 100%. Work as hard as you can, and then He takes care of the rest. And I'm telling you, that is 100% true.
Mm-hmm. And see, that's something you can prove to yourself. But first, you have to do something that Mike said. You have to let go and put it in God's hands. You have to have a North Star. It's important, whatever level you're at. I don't care if you're at a retail store in the checkout line. You'll be amazed over the where your life goes when you add a higher power and you start to honor some of the desires and dreams that you have. And it's the same, and especially if you're a salesperson, because you actually have a career that is pretty amazing when it comes to there's no limits on what your potential is, both for your own personal revenue and the people that you can impact. So it's important to have a higher power, a North Star, God, whatever you want to call it. I encourage people to make sure that they have a higher power. And I ask them, right, do you have a North Star? Because for me, it's God. And I tell them that. For me, it's God. It doesn't matter what you call your North Star, but it is important in life to have one.
It's a simple thing, right? If people want to know, just ask. God, if you're real, just show yourself to me. If you're real, just reveal yourself. Just show
Mm-hmm.
me. Because
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe it. I don't know. I've got doubts. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just
True.
ask. If
It's
you
true.
ask, He'll show you.
Yeah.
And then you'll just see stuff and you'll just go, wow,
Yeah.
that is just amazing.
Yeah. Great advice. Just ask if you want proof
Just
that
ask.
there's a
That's
higher
it.
power. You'll be
If
shown
you're
something
real, God,
amazing.
if you're real, show yourself to me.
Yeah.
Just show me.
Yeah.
Give me a sign.
And don't say, if you're real, I want a Lamborghini in the morning.
Oh Lord, won't you buy me
a Mercedes
Mercedes
Benz.
Benz?
My friends all drive Porsches. I
That's right.
must make amends.
Not like that.
No.
Yeah.
It's not on my list to be a singer. So as you all know, now you can tell you have proof.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a real good experience, a wonderful experience. Wisdom from a toilet paper salesman, and more importantly, wisdom from Mike Mirarchi, who, by the way, has lived all these things. Right? This is not someone who just wrote a book, because he took a college course and was a professor for 5 years and now he's an expert. No, he's lived it. He's been in the street. He's been at all different levels, and he's led sales teams and watched his companies grow, but also he had faith in a higher power. And it's been proven over many, many times beyond his asking. So he stopped asking a long time ago because it's been proven so many times. And we're going to have another episode where we talk about, I'll give you a clue, because I wrote a book called You Missed God on the Way to the Mosque, the Temple, or the Church. Now, we're not going to talk about the book, but we're going to talk about the subtitle, How to See God Everywhere. Because we live in something. I'm going to give you all a clue before we close.
Where do you get that, Steve?
What, this marble?
No, your book.
This is what we live on, folks. And I keep one of these next to my desk to remind me, this is the globe, the earth painted on a marble. And literally, physicists say that we are smaller than that. When you think you're such a big deal and you've got so many big troubles in your life, it's BS. It's not true. It's you doing that to you or allowing your brain to do it. We're all in something amazing, and it's happening for us. So I want you all to go to Wisdom from a Toilet Paper Salesman. I want you all to go to Amazon. I want you to go to Book Baby. I love that one, by the way, Book Baby. And what are some of the other places again?
Just about all the booksellers, just about anywhere. If you punch it in, it will come up. Just do a Google search.
Mirarchi.com, right?
Yeah.
And you also have a website for the book, wisdomfortoiletpapersalesman.com?
It's toiletpapersalesman.com or michaelmirarchi.com. It'll go to
toiletpapersalesman.com or Michael Mirarchi, and you can see how to spell his name, Mirarchi. You can see it on the screen. But for those that need a little kick in the butt and like to take notes, I just gave you how to spell it.
Thank you, Steve.
Mike, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I'm grateful, and we will schedule a How to See God Everywhere episode.
I'd love that.
You'll hear from me. We'll get it on the calendar.
Okay.
Whatever works for you, because I'm here every week. So, all right.
Yep.
All right.
You got
it. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
You're welcome.